Hello and welcome to Tabletop Odyssey. My name is Jay and today we're going to be looking at 2 years of Star Wars Legion in review. So for those of you who don't know, the game came out in 2018, March, I think the 23rd, but when I googled it seemed to say March 22nd. Either way, we've gone past the 2-year mark, and as we did last year, we're going to just take a look at holistically what happened in the previous year and what perhaps might happen in the future. And we'll also quickly talk about the channel at the moment, because that relates to me and a little bit to the game with the whole world situation. Yes, I will be talking about it very briefly. For those of you who just want to pass the time, on Saturday nights I've taken to streaming on YouTube, generally around 7:30 UK time, and I just paint models, chat Legion, all kinds of stuff. Come by, feel free to come by, and feel free to stop by. That makes sense. So yeah, the game came out 2 years ago, and what has changed? Well, quite a lot, right? It's obviously quite a big thing that has happened. 2 years is quite a long time to review. If we looked at the first year, I would say we categorise that as growth in terms of the unit selection. When the game came out, quite frankly, there wasn't that many options to pick. We only had one core, then we got the next core, and then we started getting special forces, etc. And it slowly ramped up, and by the end of the first year I did feel that we had a very nice selection of choices. And then we knew that we were going to get Clone Wars related stuff, and I predicted essentially that at Adepticon in 2019 that we would hear more about the Clone Wars factions. I say predicted, that was pretty obvious. It's not like I'm claiming to be some sort of genius there. And so it proved. We got news of the factions at Adepticon last year, and then they subsequently came out. Well, they were scheduled for essentially Gen Con August, September, but they did end up coming out in October. So we now at a situation where they have come out, obviously, and they are slowly ramping up in terms of the selection of choice, in terms of units and that kind of stuff. It's interesting to see the Clone Wars are essentially at the same position relative in the term of time since the Clone Wars came out to when similar when the original trilogy stuff came out. I explained that really badly, but what I mean is the selection is going to slowly ramp up, and that makes sense. There's a couple of changes there, like maybe the B2 and the Phase 2 core units may be a little bit more powerful than say the Fleet Troopers and Snow Troopers were. It's like they've learnt their lessons kind of thing, and I'm sure we will continue to see that. And well, obviously the slight elephant in the room is there's been two problems when it has come to FFG's release schedule, basically. One is their own doing, and one is now obviously not their own doing. They were pretty and have been pretty lax on the release dates. They were giving release dates and then not hitting those dates. There was a lot of delays and stuff like that. As I said, the Clone Wars itself got delayed from like September to October, and we're continuing to see that, and we were continuing to see that prior to the COVID-19, which is obviously the current main global issue right now. And then the COVID-19 stuff is only going to inevitably, and is already making it worse. I think FFG knows that there's going to be extra delays, and that obviously makes sense. Everybody knows what's going on there, so I won't talk about it too much. So we're going to get delays for I don't know why I'm laughing. It's not really funny, is it? But we're going to get delays for the Clone War factions, which obviously is a shame, but it doesn't really matter because the big events like Worlds and stuff like that have been cancelled, so there's obviously all different kinds of stuff going on there. But yeah, I do feel like these delays specifically, and this is my point for the 2-year review, the delays from FFG's doing were a big influence in the game. Very much hit its stride. The Clone Wars, I think, have made a massive difference to the perception of Star Wars Legion. The fact that there are now 4 factions and there's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of the aesthetic of the Clone Wars vibes well with a lot of people of a certain age, probably myself included. I like the aesthetic of the Clone Wars. The game felt like it was really, we had the initial hype in year 1, then it sort of like tailored off a little bit. Everything came a bit more mellow. People sold out, some people got in, but it was all whatever. And then I felt like with the Clone Wars, it was like, oh, actually, let's have another look at Star Wars Legion. Is Star Wars Legion worth a second look? That people were making videos, and that's what people were talking about. Oh, I've been thinking about getting into that. Is it any good? Because you got those people who weren't taken in by the hype, but now that the game is being played, regular tournaments, you can get games easily, people were like, actually, I'll have another look at that game and see if that's something I want to get into. So I felt like Star Wars Legion was really hitting its growth moment. And it's a bit of a shame that both FFG, supply chain, logistics, I know it's all complicated, whatever you want to say. It's a bit of a shame that they themselves were letting that situation down. And then obviously the world situation is going to exacerbate that issue. Obviously that part is through no fault of their own. So in terms of releases, I feel like that's where we were getting up to. Game was in the hype phase, people were liking it, and then we're going to hit a bit of a stumbling block, right? But that's understandable. Now, the problem here is that production in China is probably likely being diminished as well. I don't know what China's saying, how many cases and all that kind of stuff they've got, but I think it's reasonable to assume that the production is going to slow down. I do think that they might use this as a bit of a catch-up in the sense of design, because the designers, like Alex Davey and people like that, they're going to be able to create the game at home. Like they're going to be able to be like, oh, well, actually, we can look at this new unit and we can maybe think about it a little bit more. So we might see, when the whole world issue gets sorted, we might see that sort of improve. Not that it needs improving, but you know what I mean? We might see a lot of stuff that they just have ready and they can play test and that kind of stuff. And in the same vein, the sculptors probably can work at home. I'm just guessing, I don't know anything about FFG, but they have a lot of the stuff they probably can work at home. Obviously, you know, playtesting might be reduced in terms of actual games because people aren't getting together, etc. And they physically need to make the product still, which maybe decline less production. That was a long spiel about where the game had hit in terms of popularity. I think we were in this growth moment, and I hope the wind isn't permanently taken out of the sails of Star Wars Legion. I hope not. Obviously, 40k will probably get a new edition this summer, which will inevitably hurt any of the war game in a sense, because that'll be massive and everywhere. But Star Wars Legion is a great place, so let's just not care about the other games unless that's something you do care about. In terms of the gameplay itself, I feel like we had points changes, we've had erratas. That's nice to see. We didn't have that this time last year, and we also had we had the extra, one or two mission, one mission, one deployment, etc. But we have now seen the leak, and I'm not going to talk about this too much, but we have now seen the is it Vital Assets that's coming along. I don't know when it's coming out, so don't necessarily ask me, but it's interesting. I think whilst these are not necessarily, I don't look at them and think, massive game-changing events, but I do think there's certain combinations that will be really nice when you look at these. And I'm probably not going to make a video on these individually, but for example, if you're the blue player and you have hemmed in, then you're going to get that central deployment. Well, look at this. If you consider this, say, like on Recover the Supplies, even something like Key Positions, Hostage Exchange, I'm sure there's inevitably more than I can think of, but you might be able to now really start tailoring your list to certain list archetypes, if you will. In terms of vehicles, there wasn't really too much here in terms of vehicles. Rollout maybe improves vehicles, but vehicles as a whole have been improved. We started seeing red defense dice with armor. So, I personally don't want to see too many vehicles on the table because I don't personally find them fun, but I think you need to have them as a viable option at the same time. So the game itself, with the new new objectives, condition cards, with mission cards, etc., combine that with the new factions, I honestly think Star Wars Legion was and is in a great place. I think many people will share that view, and there was some really exciting stuff coming out. We've had Boss, we're going to get Clan Ren, we've had Sabine Wren, we're going to see Inferno Squad, Iden, Cassian, etc. Disney Plus has now come out in the UK, but I've not watched The Mandalorian yet. But I think there's only like 2 episodes. But The Mandalorian, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, I think Cassian's having a series. In The Mandalorian, somebody's been cast as Ahsoka. So in terms of TV property, Star Wars itself is doing well. The films maybe less so, a bit more controversial. But yeah, there's enough out there. I think Star Wars has got a long future. It's just a shame, I think, like that the growth point is getting hit a little bit. And that's it really. But I just want to briefly talk about myself. I mentioned that we stream. In terms of content for the channel, we might have a bit of an issue. 2 things. One, COVID-19 means there's generally less news at the moment, and I obviously cover a lot of news. Less capabilities to do battle reports. I would, in any other circumstance, have just made Katie play me on the kitchen table downstairs playing skirmish. I would have just taught her the rules again and helped her along the way, and we would have shown some interesting games. The problem with that is Katie, for those of you who don't know, is heavily pregnant and is due next week. The actual due date is next Monday, so inevitably, hopefully I will have, it's not inevitable, is it? Things could go wrong, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we will have a baby at some point very soon, and that's going to cause chaos. So in one sense, this is really bad and personal to say, but in one sense, if the whole of the Star Wars Legion and War Games takes a little bit of a quiet time, like look at Games Workshop and stuff like that have been closing, if there's a quiet time there, well, now is probably a good time for me to take a little bit step back. The last video I did was like 10 days ago, and spend time with the newborn and Kate and make sure everything's well there. So I might be a little bit quiet, I guess, is what I'm saying, but don't worry, I'm still playing Star Wars Legion. I had hoped that I would be able to get my hands on some Clone Wars stuff, and you would have seen that on the Saturday night streams. That appears to not be the case, and I can't really blame the whole situation. Bigger things are going on. So yeah, that's it. Did I miss anything? Probably. Doesn't really matter. No. Anyway, join me on Saturday nights. We have some fun on Saturday nights. I'm a bit more like crazy. Hopefully a bit more entertaining. Because I feel like when I'm here it's a bit disconnected and impersonal. But it was on the stream, we can chat and it's all cool and stuff like that. Yeah. There's many things going on in the world. I realise Star Wars and tabletop games probably aren't the most important things. So I hope you're all doing well, and I hope you're all looking after yourselves. Have a beautiful day though. Goodbye.